In this video, I am going to show you what are CRUD operations and how we can perform it in our Flutter application. CRUD operations are basically nothing but the addition of four things that are create, read, update, and finally delete. These are basically the operations of any of the database including Firebase. By putting first thing first, let's move to the browser. So I already have created the Firebase project from the Firebase console and it is set up with Flutter application. So if you don't know how we can create the Firebase project and set it up with Flutter application, so I already have created videos on these topics, so you can check them out, or I will share the link in my video description. After doing all this stuff, creating the Firebase project from the Firebase console and set it up with Flutter application, you will see this window on your screen. So you simply have to come to this build and select this Firestore database. First this will ask for get started, and after this you will see this window on your screen. This is basically our Cloud Firestore database. You can see here start the collection. Unlike any other referential database like MySQL and RDBMS, we have collection, and inside the collection we have documents and some bunch of fields instead of rows and columns. So let's see how we can create the data manually in our Cloud Firestore database. So first I am going to show you how we can create manually, then we will create this data from our Flutter application. So first it is asking for the collection name, collection ID, so this will be users, and then press next. So we will generate the auto ID for our document, and there will be two fields basically. First field will be name or username. The username will be John Doe, and next field will be his age, and its type will be number, and value will be 55. You can see these fields are keys and values just like a map. Field, type, and value. Keys and value basically like this. So let me save it. We got our user collection, and inside a document and two fields of keys and value, key age 55 and username John Doe. So like this we can create data manually in our Cloud Firestore database, and that was it. So let's move to the Android Studio and start creating the data from our application. So first let's delete this collection from here. We will create it from our application of Flutter, users, delete, just like this. And now we are on our Android Studio. I already have set up my Firebase in my Flutter application. Again, if you don't know, I already have created videos on this topic. You can check them out by hitting the link on my video description. This everything is basic steps of material app and calling home page. You may be familiar with that because now you're using Firebase with Flutter application, so you may be familiar with this. So let's move to this home page, and now we are on our home page. So there is basically nothing but a scaffold and app bar with the title of Firebase create and a center button. And when we tap this button, this will simply print in the debug console create data. For now, it is not creating the data in the Cloud Firestore, but we will perform this operation by doing some code. So let me show you the UI, how it looks like. So that's the UI, a simple button. When we click this and let's check the debug console, it prints the create data, but it is not creating the data in the Cloud Firestore because we didn't write the code yet. So let's do it. Here we will call a function which will be create, and just like this. So this function will be feature, and inside this we are going to access the user collection, like to create the user collection as we have did inside here, like the users. So we are going to do it from the code. So from the code it will be something like this: final user collection, and from the Firebase Firestore instance and the collection users. So first we have access to the user collection, and now Inside this collection, we are gonna have a document. So how we will create the document? It's pretty simple. Let me show you. A single line of code will require for this. So we have created another variable of document reference or docref equal to user collection dot doc. Inside this user collection, there will be a document on the user ID, and then we are going to create some data inside this document. So to do that, we have to await a function document reference dot set some data this accept the map as I show you inside the Cloud Firestore database in here. So this will accept a map of username, and the name will be again John, and his age will be 55, just like this, and we are good to go. Hot restart the application for resetting everything. And let me remind you one thing, if you don't know from where this Firebase Firestore instance coming from, this is simply a dependency of Cloud Firestore. You can simply get it from the pubdev. Here you need to add these two dependencies also, this Firebase core for initializing Firebase and this Cloud Firestore to use the Cloud Firestore database. And now when I press this create and check the Cloud Firestore, restart it, and we got our user collection. On the user ID we got age 55 and John as we have created from here. So this function simply triggered from this on tap, and this create a user collection for us, user ID which we have specified here, a manual ID, and age 55 and username John, these map values. So that was the creating data from directly calling the function. So now we are going to create two fields, and when we enter some data in these fields and press this create, so that particular data will going to be stored in our Firestore database. So let's also do this. We need two fields, so we have to remove this center from here and make it column to have two more fields. First field will be username field, and here will comes our username controller which we are going to create in a while. And next field will be of age, which accept the age controller, and also put some space in here by doing size box of height 10, just like this. And now let's create these controllers. So these are our controllers from which we are going to control the text of our forms. So also not forget to dispose these fields in order to avoid some memory leaks. Just like this you can dispose your controllers. And now simply instead of this directly passing the John, we will take the data from the username controller dot text, and inside the age we will take the data from the age controller dot text, just like this one. And also there will be no more manual ID. To let Firebase to create a random ID for our documents, so you simply have to remove this manual ID from here. So Firebase will generate a random ID for each of the document. So press Ctrl S to hot reload, and then we got two fields, so I need some more space around this. So on the column we will wrap this column with padding, just like this. And now our username will be something like Steve, and his age will be 45. And press create, and let's go and check the Firestore, and we got another document on the randomly generated ID by Firestore and 45 Steves. Yeah, that's great. We got our data created on the randomly generated ID, and that's great. Let's create another one that will be, let's say, eTechViral. eTechViral is simply an organization. His age, let's say 33, and create. And let's go and check. We got another document inside our user collection 33 and eTechViral. That's great. Like this, you can create the data in your Cloud Firestore database, and that's it. So I hope I have cleared everything for you, how to create data in your Firestore database and what are CRUD operations. So we simply have performed the create operation manually and also from our Flutter application. So that was it for the create operation. So in the next video, we are going to read this particular data we just have created in a while. We are going to read this data. First, let's take a quick recap of that data which we have created. Let's move to the home page, and there is a method create which we have called it when we tap this single button. So it's not the clean way, it is, but not that much. So let's create some data with the clean way and then we will read that data. So let me show you the Cloud Firestore. I have deleted that data from here, and then now we will create that data again with the clean way and then we will read that data. So let's do this. Let me comment out this data and also this create method and start creating the data with the clean way. First, I will create a directory inside this lib directory that will be data. Inside this, we are going to have another directory that will be models, and then another directory that will be remote data source, just like this. And inside these models, we are gonna have our user models. If you remember, we have created users. There was a user collection, and inside this there were so many documents of the users, and inside there were some fields of username and age. So we are going to create a model that will be user model, just like this, and cancel. That will be a simple class of user model, and there will be two fields of username and age. So let's create them. Final, that will be of type string, and username. Final string. It also can be int, so let's keep it string, and it will be age, just like this. And that let's create a constructor for them and make it name parameters. And inside this user model, we are gonna have two conversion method. One will be from snapshot to read the data, and the second method will be to JSON to convert the dot object to the raw data to store them inside the Cloud Firestore database. So let's also do this. There will be a factory method. To create a factory method, we have to do something like this: user model dot from snapshot, and inside this we are gonna have a document snapshot that will be snap, and inside this we are going to create a variable snapshot that will be equal to snap.data, and we will typecast it as map string and dynamic, just like this one. And this will return user model, put semicolon here, and username will be snapshot username, and age will be just like this. So let me copy this one in order to not waste the time. That will be age, just like this. And that was it for our snapshot. And let's create another method that will be of type map string and dynamic, and its name will be to JSON, and this will return a map as we have specified the type map string dynamic. So this will be username, and age will be age, just like this. So we successfully created our toJSON method to convert data from dot objects to the raw data, and from snapshot to read the data. So that was for our user model, and now let's create inside this remote data source. And now inside this remote data source, let's create another file of Dart. Its name will be Firestore helper. Inside this, let's create a class that will be Firestore helper. And so inside this, we are gonna have that methods like create, read, update and delete. But first let's create that create method. So let's copy it instead from the home page. Let's copy it from here and paste it and uncomment this one, so that will be good. And also make it static and import that Cloud Firestore, and that's it. And also not forget to pass the user model inside this, because we are going to access the data from the user model. That will be a single user. And let's also remove this, because now we are going to do it on a clean way. And let's create a variable of final that will be our new user, that will be equal to user model. And inside this, username will come from user.username and age will be user.age, just like this. And let's convert this to map values by calling to JSON. And now let's await and doc reference dot set the data to new user, just like this. And also not forget to wrap this document reference with try and catch if there were some errors, so that method will catch these errors. So try and catch e, and cut this and paste it inside this try, and also correct this spelling of the catch. So this will simply print some error occurred, and that will show that particular error. So that's it. We have access to the user collection and document, and we have created a model for our user. Username will come from model username and age will also come from here, and we have converted and we await for setting the data if there were some errors, so that will throw the error. So that's great. And let's move to the home page, and inside this inkwell on tab, we will do Firestore helper dot create, and this accept a user model. So user model, and inside this user model there is username. So now we will take this username from the controller, username controller dot text, just like this. And age will be age controller dot text, and maybe that's it. So now let's run the emulator. So we got our emulator running. So we tried a little clean way, not little, but it is a clean way. So let's try it out if it's working or not. So let me pass some data in here. That will be some, like, let's say eTechViral again, and its age is, let's say, 45. Create data, and let's go and refresh this Cloud Firestore, and it's loading. We got our users, a random generated ID, and inside this we got eTechViral and age 45 of type string instead of int. So it's your choice, you can do it by int. I did it as string, so it's upon you. So anyways, we have created data on a clean way. So now let's try to read that data. That will be awesome. Let's go to the helper class and let's create another method for that. That will again static method of
stream because that will live data. When we add data, that will directly show up here. That will be live data. This will not require to load our page and then the data will come here. So that will directly show up here when we create the data. So let's do it practical. Stream and list of user model, and its name will be read, and again we are going to access the user collection, and then we will return user collection dot snapshots, and then we will map these documents, and this give us the query snapshot. Let's name it query snapshot by shop, not shop but short. And from the query snapshot we will do docs dot again map, and now we will call that method we have created inside the user model. So inside this we will do user model dot from snap, and we will pass that e here dot to, not here, dot to list, just like this one. And we have successfully created our read method. So let's move to the home page, and right after that create button. Let's close this button like this and put some spacing after this button, and let's create a single user, how our users will looks like. So let's do it. This will be a container of margin agent set dot symmetric, and horizontally this will nothing but from vertically its margin will be 5, and inside the child of this container we are going to put a list style, and the list style leading will be a container, width will be 40, height will also be 40, decoration box decoration, and color will be colors dot the purple, and shape will be box shape, not shadow, shape dot circle, and inside, and maybe that's it for the leading. And let's come out from this leading, and the container, and the title will be simple text username. There will come the name of user, and subtitle will be also a text. There will come the age of the user, let's say 45 for now, and we got a single user. It will looks like this. So let's put it in the list view, because we are gonna have the list of users when we create the user. First user will come here, and the second will come after this, and third will come after that, and so on. So let's cut this container and put a list view expanded to not throw the render box errors. So there will be list view dot builder. In the builder it accepts the context and the index. So, and this will return our that container. That's it. And let's not forget to pass the item count for now 5, and we got 5 dummy users of username and age 45, and that's great for now. So let's not copy again, or maybe let's wrap this expand with the stream builder, and that stream builder, its generic type will be list of user model, and inside the stream we will call the firestore helper dot read to read all the users, and this stream builder has a builder, context, and a snapshot. Now we will check some conditions. So first we will check if snapshot dot connection stat is equals to connection stat dot waiting. So if the connection state was waiting, we will simply return center child circular progress indicator. So if the process was waiting, so we will simply show up the circular progress indicator in the center. And then let's check another condition. If snapshot dot has error, so what will happen if there were some error? So if there was some error, so we will return in the center child text some error occurred, just like this. If there were some error, so simply that error will be show up. Okay, then we will check if snapshot dot has data. So what if there were some data instead of error and loading? So if there were data, we will create a final user data equal to snapshot dot data. So we simply will fetch that data if there were data, as simple as that. So let's close this, expand it and cut it and paste it inside this if has data, and also return here center child center, not center but circular progress indicator, and that's it. And instead of passing the item count 5, we will take the item count from the user data dot length according to the users in the database. So if there were one user, so here will show only one users, and if there were some error, so it will show some error occurred, and if it was waiting, so it will show the circular progress indicator. That's it. And now let's inside this list view builder, we will extract a single user from all these users and we will show their data inside this username and age. So let's do it. Final single user will be equal to user data on index, and from the single user we will extract this data single user dot username and single user dot age, just like this, and we are good to go. So press Ctrl S to hot reload, and you can see we got eTechViral with the age of 45 we just added inside our Cloud Firestore database. So now we are reading that data from our database. So let's try to create another data. This name will be, let's say, Steve, and his age is, let's say, 100 or 1000. Create, and you can see Steve is created here, and it didn't require the reloading page or hot restart the application because it's, as I said, it's stream, so its data will be live. So that's it. We are reading the data from the database and we can create it. If you check the database, we have created this Steve with the age 1000, and also we are reading it here. Okay, so let's hot restart the application again if there were some errors. So what happens? What was that red screen? Let me check the debug console. What was that error? Besides it, no Firebase app default has been created. Call Firebase initialize app. Why this happens? Let me guess. Move to the main page and it's async. Oh, we forget to await this Firebase initialize. That's why it was throwing that error when we start our application. So let's hot restart the application, and we didn't see any error. So that's how you can write your data in your Cloud Firestore with a little clean way and also can read it. So I hope I have cleared your confusions about creating data in Cloud Firestore and also reading data. So there are basically 3 ways to update the data in the Cloud Firestore database. The first one is the manual way, and the 2 others are a little bit different. So first let's go upon the first way, that is manual way. and let's move to our Cloud Firestore database, and here we have eTechViral with the age 45. Let's try to update that eTechViral to only E update, and I have run my emulator. Let me show you. Now it's only E. Let me again update this age to 66 update, and you can see the age is now 66. So that was a simple manual way. You can update the data from here, and I think you know this better than me. So anyways, let's move to the second way, how we can update it using our second method. For that, simply move to the Firestore helper, copy this create method and paste it right after this, and change its name to update. Remove this user model, and there is no need of this user model, and change this set to update, and as it accept the map, so this will be username to some updated data. And let me tell you one more thing, to update some data we need an ID to update the data. So we will go to the browser and we will copy this ID from here. On that ID we will update that document. Now in that document, this username field E will be updated to some updated data when I call this update method somewhere. So let's try it. Go to the home page, and here we have a container. Let's wrap this container with the inkwell, which give us the onTap property. In the onTap we will call Firestore helper.update, and that's it. Press Ctrl S and move to the Firestore and open this emulator also to make everything clear, and we create onTap on this purple circle. Let's tap on it, and the data is changed, some updated data, and you also can see it here. So that was the second method, and now let's move to the third method. It will be a bit longer but the cleanest one. So let's also do this. Move to the Android Studio and move to the Firestore helper. Comment this out because there is no need of this update method anymore, and also remove this inkwell from here. So that's it. And again, let me tell you, we have updated this username using this ID. Like on that particular ID of the document, we have updated the single field. So from this, now we know we need an ID to update the document. So for that, let's move to the user model and let's add another field that will be our string ID, just like this, and also pass it in the constructor. And let's replicate this edge and paste the ID on it, and the same will goes for the to.json. Ctrl D to replicate ID and ID. That's it. There is some error just because we have not make it nullable. So that was it. Let's move to the Firestore helper, and now we need to modify this create method. Now when we are creating the user, so we need to add the document ID also inside a field, as we have created ID here. So let's do it. First we will create a variable final UID that will be equal to userCollection.doc.id. So now we have stored our randomly generated ID in this UID, and now we will pass this UID inside this doc, and also that particular UID will be inside our user model to store that UID also in the field. So let's try it. Press Ctrl S and try to add another user. His name will be, let's say, Smith, and his age is 34. Create. Smith is created. Move to the Cloud Firestore. This document is newly created, and we got that document ID inside a field that is ID. So that's great. Now we will use that ID to update that field. So that's great. Again, move to the Android Studio and Firestore helper and copy this create method. Paste it right after this, and this name will be update. And here now there will be the need of user model. Again, we are accessing to the users, and let's remove this ID because we already have created ID in the user model. So now we will get this ID from the user.id to update that particular document, and that user.id will also be on this, just like this. And also not forget to change this set to update, and everything will be just like this. So our update method is successfully created, and now let's move to the home page again, and inside the list tile you will find another property which is trailing, and here we will put an icon, icons.edit. Press Ctrl S and check the UI, we got an edit icon here. Now we will wrap this icon with the inkwell widget, and on tap we will navigate to the edit page, and here we will edit these values, and here we will also create a button to edit these values. So that's it, and let's create an edit page. Inside this pages directory we will create another page. Its name will be edit page, and that will be a stateful widget edit page. And also let's import the material package. Here will be scaffold, and we will wrap this scaffold with the safe area, and there will be an app bar, there will be title, text, edit, and in the body there will be some padding edge inserts from all sides. It will be 8. In the child we're gonna have a column children, and here we're gonna have 2 fields. So let's move to the home page and copy the fields from here. Okay, there is the field, so copy these 2 fields and paste it right here. We need the controllers also, so let's also copy these from here, and also there we need the dispose. Okay, and paste it right here. And now there will be some difference in these controllers. We are not going to initialize them directly in here, and we are gonna have to declare here directly, and we will do init_stat. Init_stat is basically a method which calls only once when the page builds. So that's the init method. Inside this init method we will initialize these controllers, but first let me comment them out, and also this line of code, and also this, just to check if we are navigating to this page or not. And also these inside the dispose, move to the home page and come a little bit down, and on this icon we will add inkwell on tap. When we tap this will navigate us to the edit page. So we'll do navigator dot push context, and route will be material page route, builder will be context, and here we will pass context. Okay, we will pass the edit page just like this. Press Ctrl S if we are navigating to the edit page or not. So let's click on it. Yes, we are navigating to our edit page, and now I want a button here of update. So let's also copy it from this home page, that inkwell, copy it and move to the edit page, and right after this size box I will paste it, and that's it. Remove this Firestore helper from here and change its name to update. Press Ctrl S to hot reload, and we got a button here. That's great. And now one interesting thing we are going to do it in here, that is we will create final user model user, and also required it in the constructor. I created the user model here and pass it inside the constructor, just because if you see the UI back to the home page, there is some data, that username and age. I want this username and age also inside this edit page, and that data will be inside this username field and age. So that's why I pass this user model here, and I will take the data from this user model. Let me show you how. So in the home page now there is required the user model, so we will pass user model, and inside the user model the data will be that data username single user dot username, and age will be single user dot age, and also the id will be coming from single user dot id. on which we are gonna update that particular user. Okay, so let's move to the edit page and let's uncomment them also in the dispose and also in these fields. And now let's initialize them in the init state. Like this, username controller will be equal to text editing controller, and in the text we will get the initial text value from the user dot not user widget dot user dot username, and let's replicate it and copy this edge controller, paste it right here, and the edge will be user dot edge, and also make them nullable. So here put assertion operator. So that all process means we are sending the data from this page, from the home page, here in the edit page. So that username and edge will be the initial value of these fields, just like this. Press Ctrl S, or let's hot restart the application and open our emulator. And when I press this edit, you can see in the fields we got that data from our home page. When I go back and press this edit, we will get the Steve and 1000 age in the fields. So that's great, we are getting the data. So now the one remaining thing is just to call the update method on this update. So let's come here, and inside this inkwell we will call firestore helper.update. It accept the user model, and id will comes from widget.user.id, and the username will be the newly updated text which we are passing in the fields username controller.text, and also put the assertion operator here, and edge will be edge controller dot text, just like this. And as this update method is a feature, so it give us the then method dot then. So it means when this process completes, so what will happen in this method, we will open the body, and when all this process completes, so we will do navigator dot not push but pop. So this will pop this edit page and will navigate back us to the home page. So let's hot restart the application. Now we are on our home page. So let's try to edit some data. So I'm going to edit this Smith. Let's click on it, and we will do Smith professional, and his age will be, let's say, 99, and update. We are navigated to the home page, and it's update Smith professional and 99. And I'm not going to update these two data just because, let me show you in the Cloud Firestore database, these values are previously added. We add these values in the previous video. At that time there were no ID in our document, so when I update these fields there will be some unexpected behavior. So we should update the fields which contains the ID. So let me create another user. His name will be, for example, again Steve Jobs, and his age will be 80. Create, and we got Steve Jobs with the 80 age, and let's try to edit his data. Steve Jobs will be, let's say, something, and his age to 123. Update, and the Steve Jobs is updated to something and 123. So just like this, you can update the data in your Cloud Firestore database. If you remember the case of when we were updating the document in the Cloud Firestore database, there was the need of the unique ID to update a specific document in the Cloud Firestore database. So the same will be in the case of deleting a document from the Cloud Firestore database. I'll be so excited if you try it out by yourself, and also tell me in the comment section how was your experience of that you are trying out yourself. If you stuck and didn't find any solution that how we can delete the data from the Cloud Firestore database, so let's do it with me. As I show you 3 ways of updating the data in the Cloud Firestore database, there is also 3 ways to delete that data from the Cloud Firestore database. The first one is manual, and you know it better than me, and that's it. And the second way is, let me show you also the second way. Let me uncomment this previous update method and rename it to delete, and we are accessing to the user collection, and let's delete this try block from here, and directly on that ID we will simply call that delete. So that's it for this delete method. Press Ctrl S to hot reload, and let's go to the home page, and simply as we did for the update of the second method, let's wrap this container with the inkwell, which gives us the onTap property, and inside this onTap property let's call firestore helper.delete. As simple as that. Now go to the Cloud Firestore, and on that ID we have called the delete method. So let's move it here and press this, and the data is deleted from the Cloud Firestore database. And now let's also try out on the third way. Again, move to the Cloud Firestore helper, and let's not comment this out. Now there will be the need of user model, user, and ID. We will pass that ID from the user.id, and that's it for our delete method. Let's go to the home page and simply remove this inkwell from here, and there is the property in the list tile which is on long press. Like when we press on our single user like this will show a dialog box, and from here we will delete that data. So let's try it out. To create a dialog box, there is a method show dialog. It takes a context, and there is a builder, so that builder will be also the context, just like this, and open body. This will return alert dialog, and there are some properties. So in the title we will put simple text widget, and there will be delete, and in the content we will ask, are you sure you want to delete, just like this. There are action property which is the list of widgets, and there we will simply create an elevated button which give us the on press and the child. First let's keep empty this on press, and in the child there will be text which will be delete, just like this. Press Ctrl S to check this out. Open this emulator and press this long, and we got a dialog with the title delete and the content, are you sure you want to delete, and an elevated button which is delete. So now we will call that delete method on that delete button, and that will delete the specific document from our Cloud Firestore database. So let's do it also. Here on the in the on press we will do firestore helper.delete, and this takes the user model, so that will be our single user. Single user is a user model, you can see it here. And as this delete method is a future method, so we will simply do dot then when the process completes or the document is deleted from the Cloud Firestore database. So we will simply do navigator dot pop just to close that alert dialog box. So now let's try it out. Press Ctrl S and open our emulator, and let's try to delete this Steve from here. I will press it a bit longer and press this delete, and Steve is not deleting, just because, let me tell you, go to the Cloud Firestore database and check the Steve. There is no ID in here. In the second video we tried to create some data, and at that time there were no ID in our document. So this document is unable to delete just because there is no ID. So let me try it out for the Smith Professional, because there is an ID, delete, and the field is deleted and the dialog box is gone, because we call this navigator pop context here. And that was it for the delete method. There were 3 ways. The first one is manual, and the second one was just to hardcode an ID from the Cloud Firestore database in the string and simply call the delete method on that particular ID. And this third method is a bit cleaner. We can delete a specific user from here by clicking a bit longer on a single user, and simply when press this delete button, just like this. And these 2 users are unable to delete just because they didn't contain an ID to delete that document. So I hope if you like the video, if so, show some love in the comment section, and also let me know if something is not clear to you. And also be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you will not miss any future updates and videos like this. For now, goodbye, and I will see you in the next video.